Those are two iconic, records for me that I feel like being a fan of the Dolphins and growing up in Florida and knowing Mark and the type of player you, OJ, right? You guys, y'all epitomize what it means to be a Dolphin football player. To be able to carry that legacy on to the next year, you have a high standard for yourself.
Welcome back to the Fish Tank, presented by Van Horn Law Group and Casabella Design Group. Seth Levit, and one of two of the biggest Panthers fans who also played for the Miami Dolphins, OJ McDuffie. And Juice, we just so happen to be joined by the other guy as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And we're both, I can tell, still pumped, Big Seth. You see me flexing right now with my championship hat, you know what I mean? My T-shirt. We've been rolling as Panther fans for the last few years, man. And hell, to go back to back and then have this guy here. This guy here is Mr. Panther when it comes to the Miami Dolphins or, football in general. And it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about how our Panthers beat the shit out of the Edmonton Oilers.
Yes, they did. Well, he is indeed Mr. Florida Panthers as a Miami Dolphin and now former Miami Dolphins running back, which is hard for me to get those words out. But Raheem Mostert dives into the tank. We have wanted this interview for quite some time, and here it is. It's happening. Raheem, man, late night for you last night.
Yeah, late night, early morning. Celebrated a good victory last night. Went to the game, and it was spectacular to be able to witness a back-to-back championship for a team that I've been rooting for the past 13 years. It's been spectacular, and I got a chance to go on the ice. I talked to Carter Verhage. He's one of my guys. He helped me last year in hoisting the trophy on stage. So he asked me if I was going to be back on the stage with him again come Sunday. So we'll see though.
Well, Raheem, you're supposed to be at the elbow room right now, man. But we appreciate you. Taking some time with us, man. I went to the elbow room last night until they kicked us out about 3 a.m. I was going to go today, but I'm going to go a little bit later because the party never stops with these guys, man.
No.
But they put in that work first, and then they play hard later, man. That's what I love about that hockey team.
Yeah, it's really nice to see, all the work and dedication that those guys have. I mean, hockey in general it's a completely different animal. You're dealing with so many different cultures that have grown up to love and cherish the sport. And then, to be able to have guys just flying around on the ice, it's tough skating on ice. I've tried it when I was younger, and I actually tried it a couple years ago, and it's tough. If you don't have a knack for it, if you didn't start out early on in your life, it's gonna be hard. Those guys have been playing hockey for quite some time, and they're doing their thing out there, and it's good to see the dedication and hard work paying off.
Well, Raheem, you say that about hockey players, but it's not easy to run between the tackles either. You've been doing that for since you were 5 or 6 years old too. So they probably feel the same way about you when it comes to getting on that football field. I mean, I talk to some basketball players like Tracy McGrady and those guys. I'm trying to hand them a helmet and football. They're like, nah, I'm good. I'm good when it comes
well,
to that.
basketball players, that's a whole
I'm just
different
saying
thing.
in general, everybody's got their thing that they've been doing for a long time, and people just can't step into their realm, into their element, into their arenas and be successful because we've been doing it for most of our lives,
Right, absolutely. That's true too.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out real quick, Juice, Raheem said the team he's been following for the last 13 years. So I know it's very popular to support the Florida Panthers right now, and who wouldn't want to be associated with a winner and an epic run that they're on. I mean, really, the word dynasty should start to be thrown around. But if you said the last 13 years, that means you were following them during some lean moments as well.
Some lean moments, some empty seats, some cheap tickets. It's nice to see this team just doing the things that they're doing. It took some time, and now we're here. We're back-to-back champs. I'm gonna be going to my second parade. I'm sure you guys gonna be going too.
Unbelievable.
And having a good time, and so it's definitely tough at the beginning, but now it's nice to see the payouts, right?
Yeah. And I'm gonna tell you this, Seth. I was going to the games when it's down in Miami Arena.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way down south when the year of the rat, Scott Mellenby and those guys, man. It was like, it's been like Raheem said, man. It's been very, very lean, like you said, Seth. And it's so much fun to have a championship in your city, but having back to back. Well, I got another question for you because when I play, we called our toughest football players hockey players. Because Those dudes are, I mean, think about it, man. The physicality, like you talk about, being on ice, you know the hit's coming. You know, you can see it. A lot of times, you know, even football, we can see it, but sometimes we don't see the hit. But, man, some of those dudes are just tough. And then be willing to lose your chicklets, you know what I mean, at any point. That's not me, bro. Look at your smile. I couldn't imagine you saying, yeah.
Yeah, I can't lose this. I'm trying everything I possibly can, you know, even in the sport of football, to wear a mouth guard or something like that, or some type of Invisalign to protect it, you know.
Right.
You don't want to lose these. Once you only have one set.
That's it.
You only have
That's
one
it.
set.
At this point, that's it. There's
There's
no recovering them at this point, man.
At all.
Too funny.
You know, Raheem, Seth mentioned something earlier when we started, man, and the phrase "former Miami Dolphins running back." You know, and it really doesn't. It's weird, man. It's weird right now for me to even think about that, man. But you know, that's the way things work in this league these days, man.
Yep.
It makes me wonder, you know, given the way your career is going and the way it started, you know, being a part of 7 different teams and, you know, your first couple of seasons alone, you certainly understand that NFL football is definitely a business. But then things settle down for you. I mean, think about it. I mean, you become an established, respected player in the league, made the Pro Bowl 2 seasons ago, broke records, yet here you are changing uniforms for the 8th time in your career. This offseason remind you again still that this is definitely a business.
Yeah, it definitely has, you know, just because the way everything transpired, you know, within the last year, even going back to last year, you know, and the year before that, you mentioned about the Pro Bowl and breaking records, right? And I look back and I you want to cherish those moments for what they are, right? As a player and as an individual. And, you know, you have a job to do the following year and to exceed those expectations from within, right? And so for me, that was the case last year. And then unfortunately, it was out of my control, out of my hands. You know, I dealt with an injury and then came back. It was a very severe injury, you know, in regards to my health and thinking about my future. But wanted to come back and I came back fully healthy, ready to go. But, you know, it's just the number wasn't being called at the time. And so having that, you know, in spite of everything else, you know, as a player, you just want to keep growing, keep learning, and keep processing everything that's going around you. And so this offseason, you know, being let go, it was definitely tough because, like you said, being established and then having a presence in a city that you made an impact both on and off the field, you know. We've talked about several different events, you know, going to host events, even doing charity events and community service, right? We go out there and reach out to the community. That's a big thing that I've always taken into account in my journey and in my process and helping and giving back and doing all these different things, right? And Seth knows, you know, we always communicate in regards to the community aspect, you know, wanting to get involved more and do everything in your own backyard. I think that's the biggest thing that you could possibly do. And then, you know, now it's just having to realize that it is still a business at the end of the day. But, you know, I planted my roots here. I'm going to be a South Florida native for the rest of my life. My family is going to be here. You know, even though we're going to be in Vegas 6 months out of this year, that's not where our home's going to be. You know, that's just going to be a house. It's not going to be a home. Our home is going to be South Florida. And, you know, it is tough. I was just walking around the corridors last night at the arena in Amarant, and I was getting stopped by so many fans. You know, it was like, man, we wish you were here. Man, it sucks. Like, and I'm just looking at them like, you know, and a couple of them even mentioned fins up to me, and I'm just like,
man.
You know,
I'm Raider Nation. I'm Raider Nation now.
Yeah, I'm Raider Nation. You know, it's definitely a switch that I have to sometimes compartmentalize, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, fans are fans, and they really appreciate the work. And if they know who an individual person is or a player, you know, as a true fan, they're always going to be fans. You know, they're always going to cherish those moments that you spent with them through those years. So it's definitely enlightening and it's definitely fun.
I mean, that's Big Seth. I mean, that's definitely part of it. You talk about a guy that that has done so much in this community since he's been here, doing things the right way. You don't see anything negative about him anywhere. And then the business part of everything rears its ugly head at times, you know, and it's that's the toughest part of it all, man. You know, man, we're gonna miss you, bro. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
Listen, I'm gonna be here. I'm only gone for 6 months. That's it.
Okay,
all right.
I'm
gonna miss you. How about I'm gonna miss you in that aqua and orange? Yeah. I'm gonna miss him in that aqua and orange, Big Seth. How about that? Then?
Yeah, I totally get it. I totally get it. And Raheem, you know, I wonder, just hearing you talk about all of this, if there's this, like, you've always been a guy who's so humble, and you've always talked about the journey, and we're going to discuss your journey later, but the journey that you had to go through to get here. And is there kind of a tug and pull between, like, you never want to forget what it took to get here and how fortunate it was to finally seize an opportunity, the 7 teams that Juice talked about, but then also, like, you had to learn to reassess your value and hold others to what that value has become. Like, okay, yeah, that was, but now, like, I give, this is the moment, Juice. I always give Juice a hard time as a first-round draft pick. Like guys like you and I, Raheem, we didn't get the red carpet rolled out for us as first-round draft picks, right? We didn't have that luxury.
It didn't take long, Raheem. It didn't take long, man.
It seemed like the appropriate moment. But then once you get here, they always say, like, your draft status gets, in theory, gets thrown out the window when, you got to put people on the field and what have you. And so then at this stage of your career and the things that you've accomplished, don't talk to me about having been undrafted or being cut X amount of times. Like, let's talk about 21 touchdowns, right? Those kind of things. So is there a tug and pull for you I'm not saying like that you need to be boastful, but to say, hey, look, I value myself at this now, and I think other people should see that value as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're sitting back, right, and you're listening to what everybody's saying outside the media world and in the football world, and for me, I've always been a guy that, just keep my blinders on, head down, continue to go to work. I don't care you could be a first rounder or an undrafted guy. It doesn't really matter. What really matters is the heart and determination that you have, right? And so for me, I've always had my mindset on one thing, and it's always going to be consistent. I want to be in the Hall of Fame. That's my goal. That's the end goal. Why do you play a sport, for so long and you pour your heart and soul into it? You have your weakest moments and your strongest moments. Why are you doing those things? Is it because you want fame? Is it because you want the money? You can get both of those. Do you want to win a lot of Super Bowls like Tom Brady? Do you want to win no Super Bowls like the Bills back in the 80s, right? They went there 3 times and didn't win
or
a
still
single one. So it's one of those things where, for me, I've always had that, I call it the gold jacket standard. I've always had that gold jacket mentality. And, that's the reason why I do the things that I do, is because, both on and off the field, they go together, right? They go perfectly together. When you hear about the Hall of Famers out there in the world, they've always given back on a whole different level, right? Like, prime example, I'll tell you, Calais Campbell, right? Calais Campbell is the epitome of a future Hall of Famer. And he's been in the game for quite some time. He's still going. He's back in Arizona, and he's doing everything the right way. He gives back to the community. Walter Payton Mann nominee several times. He's won, right?
I think he does. I think he's won it.
He has.
Pretty sure he has.
So that's the standard, and for me, that's something I try to uphold. I don't like being in the media. I don't like being so negative all the time, and just because, like you said, that pull and tug, right? You have to go back to your roots. You have to go back to what laid the foundation for you as an individual, for you as a person, as a man. And for me, those trying times that I had early on in my career, they just built callus on my hands. So that way, once I go out there and do what I have to do, my hands are good. I'm not, getting cut just off of.
You don't have these soft ass hands like I have. I understand. I get told all the time that you don't get calluses on the typewriter. I get it. On the keyboard.
So, that's just the mindset I've always had. You do have to value yourself. You have to let people know, who you are as a player, what you bring to the table, what teams are missing out, because that, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. If you didn't like me for the type of player that I am, trust me, there's 31 other teams that's going to like what I like. That's going to like me for who I am, what I could bring to the table. If it's special teams, I've done that multiple times in my career. I'll go back to special teams and play gunner. And that's why I named my oldest son Gunner, because I was the best gunner in the league at the time, and he was born. So, it's one of those things too. I value the right stuff. I value myself to move on and be like, what? This team cut me. This team released me. So what? Don't worry. You're gonna be on my list next time I go next time I play you.
Right.
And it's nothing personal. It's just business, you know.
Put the Dolphins on a different list. Can we just put them on just a little less angry list?
They on that list now.
Oh man, you sure you don't want to have a vet day when you play against us, man?
Yeah.
Don't take a vet day.
Little vet rest?
Sure. Yeah, it's gonna be a vet
Too
day
good.
for throughout the week until Sunday or Monday or Thursday.
Too good. Well, look, the reality is, whether we like it or not, you're a Raider now. I know you're excited about it. I know they're excited about you in Vegas. And while this isn't a look in the rearview mirror kind of business, we need you to humor us a little bit because we're a look in the rearview mirror kind of podcast.
Yeah.
And we are a Miami Dolphins show. So
Yeah.
I do have some more Dolphins questions for you. And you discussed a little bit in the first answer, but just last year overall, not just for the team, but for yourself personally, can you talk about how challenging it was? Or can you, I guess, expand upon how challenging it was? Because you went, your first couple seasons here, you started 29 games, and then you go into last year, you had to miss 4 because of the injury. You only appeared in the starting lineup, I think, once all season. And, I saw in a recent interview, I think you might have done with some media for the Raiders, that you felt last year was not up to your standard. For a multitude of reasons, you felt it was not up to your standard. Are you comfortable discussing last year in greater detail?
Yeah, no, absolutely. In regards to my standard, right? Everybody has, and I try to tell my sons this every day. I set the example, with my oldest son, Gunnar, and he's like the wolf pack. And so I tell him, hey, look, your standard should be up here, right? Like if your standard's up here, your little brothers, they got to meet your standard, and they're going to follow you wherever you go, right? So with me, I set the standard in 23. That was my standard, and I don't expect anything lower than that, moving forward. And so with last year, started against Jacksonville, first game of the season, ended up getting injured. I had like my clavicle and all that stuff was just, I had fractures in my chest and everything, and it was just hard to breathe. So
Just pause real quick, man. See, people don't understand that stuff. Raheem, people don't understand what we go through, what players go through to get back on the field. And, when most people, it's probably 6 to 8 months that before they can do anything. And we do something that happens, and within weeks, they're expecting us to get back on the football field. So please keep going with that, man. It's amazing stuff, man.
I didn't have answers at the time, the reasons why I wasn't being utilized like last year or the year before. And it's tough because, like I said, I have a standard for myself. I'm expecting to go into the following season. And also, I'm removing last year, like last year didn't even happen, right? Because I have to go to that next level. And for me, it was amazing breaking 2 records that was, hasn't been done. One of them hasn't been done in over 40 years, right? Or close to 40 years. I think it was 39 with Mark. And then, Ricky Williams, rushing record, which hasn't been done since he played. And those are 2 iconic records for me that I feel like being a fan of the Dolphins and growing up in Florida and knowing Mark and the type of player you, OJ, right? You guys, y'all epitomize what it means to be a Dolphin football player. So to be able to carry that legacy on to the next year, you have a high standard for yourself, and that was for me, right? And so looking back, it was just brutal. It was the season, wasn't playing out, it wasn't shaking out. We were losing games that we shouldn't have been losing.
Right. Well, hell. Seth, I want to go back to 2023.
Okay. Don't we all?
Wow, because I'm going to tell you this, Raheem. There's nobody that screams your name louder than Seth Levit when we're watching the games. We're about to do post game. We watch the game together. We do post game. You know what I mean? He's always clamoring like, why isn't Raheem getting the rock more? Why isn't he? You know what I mean? Because we know, man, you mentioned a little bit now. You go back to 2023, you broke a 40-year record. You broke Ricky Williams, who I thought was one of the best running backs, in NFL history, nonetheless, the Miami Dolphin history. And you went and eclipsed that. Back then, man, that 2023 season, man, was there one moment that, when you're like, man, I'm putting it on people right now, and I'm going to continue to be this dominant, and also, what went right that year? When do you feel something special was happening?
Yeah, that year, I mean, I feel like it was just a cumulative of all the guys on the field. When the play was called, we all trusted each other now, and we knew that if one person couldn't make the play, the next man had to step up. It was like the next man mentality, and I feel like for me, I'm always gonna bring my mentality. I'm always gonna bring that switch that once I'm on that field, it's a go time. It's definitely one of those things that you have to to get out there and be yourself. And so that was the case. And I felt like everything was going right. And I also felt like if we won that playoff game, it would definitely been a little bit sweeter of a season, because we haven't won a playoff game at the time, in 20 something odd years, which is
Right.
kind of crazy, even given this type of team that we had that year. And it was just a magical season, for me, but for a lot of guys too.
Yeah, it definitely was.
It was, man.
And so,
Playoff
Juice,
game.
you remember what I would scream out all the time would be liar. So Mike McDaniel at one point in describing you said that you were a master of linear yardage accumulation. Well, I don't know if you ever heard him use that phrase, but and I guess it just meant that your ass got north and south, right? That you didn't waste any yards out there. So linear yardage accumulation, I thought was it. So I LYA.
Yeah.
So I would scream out liar every time you would like knife through or get an extra 3 yards when it looked like you should only got this many.
Right.
And so that was, he's Juice was telling the truth there. It's interesting to hear you talk about putting the right guys in or not looking towards the future, because the other side of that is, like, you have been a great mentor your entire career to younger guys or guys who didn't come up, guys who came through the hard way. I saw another interview where you were quoted as saying that you always tell people, you help me feed my family, I'll help you feed your family. And this was really evident with the way you mentored young guys like Devon Achane, like Jalen Wright. Again, not being concerned about helping guys who may ultimately be the ones who take the position that's vacated when you're not there. Where did that mentality come from? Like, what motivated you, even being around as long as you have been, knowing that helping somebody who may take your job at some point was still the right thing to do? How did you develop that?
Yeah. So there's a coach that I was with all these years at the 49ers. His name is Coach Turner, Bobby Turner. Real old school running back. Like he helped put TD on the map, Terrell Davis. He coached Clint Portis out there in Washington, Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman in Atlanta. So he had a plethora of guys that would make undrafted guys turn into the foreseen starters at the time, and carry on a legacy of just coaching some of the greatest running backs ever. And that's where I learned, you help me feed my family, I help you feed yours. Because every time he was in the rooms, he wasn't just coaching you about football, the X's and O's. He was coaching you about things that, and he would call it food for life, right? You sit down at a Thanksgiving meal. He's like, look, I'm not just going to give you just the entree. I'm going to give you dessert. I'm going to give you, bread to go with the meal. I'm going to make sure you're fed right, but I'm going to do my due diligence in helping you get to where you need to. And I want your family to thrive. And so that's where that came from, just help me feed my family. I'll help you feed yours. It was the mentality that was in the room. And so, I just try to project it in anywhere and everywhere that I'm in, any room that I'm in. You help me feed my family, I'm gonna help you feed your family. It should always be like that. There should never be a grudge. There should never be, like I'm dealing with Ashton Genty right now.
Right.
He's a 6th overall pick, and this is gonna be my first ever running back that's been drafted first round in the room, right? So. There's a lot at stake.
They gave him donuts when he signed his contract, for crying out loud. I've never seen that. Did you see?
Right.
Juice,
Yeah.
did you see this?
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. They freaking signed his contract and they gave him customized donuts.
Yeah. So
That's what you're dealing with.
Yeah, that's what you're dealing with, and it comes with a lot of territory, right? Being a first rounder, it definitely does. But at the same time, who's to say that I can't have a first round mentality? I can definitely I can definitely step in that role, and we've been competing against one another. I know where I stand, in regards to being on the playing side, because I'm 33 years old. I'm still going. I'm still bigger, stronger, and faster now than I was previous years. So I just gotta have that mentality. I gotta go in there and I told him, hey, look, you help me feed my family, I'm gonna help you feed yours. You have any questions that throughout this whole process? I don't know what it's like being a first rounder, but I know what it's like being a vet going into my 11th year and seeing all the highs and lows of lows, and trying to finish the season strong and start the season strong, and taking every play for what it's worth, and going out there and executing at a high level. I know what it feels like, and I'm going to help you understand those things. I'm going to help you get into the playbook. I'm going to help you understand what you need to read within the run game. I'm going to help you advance more in the pass game, because that's something that I excel tremendously well at. So it's just going hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, Raheem, you might not have been a first rounder, man, but you have a first round grade now in the league. And Seth, you mentioned it earlier. It doesn't matter. Once you get in, what I mean?
Once you get in, I tell people all the time, look, you got an empty book. You really have an empty book. It's up to you what pages you want to write, what chapters you want to leave behind. I left behind so many good chapters so far, but there's so much more of that book that I want to continue to write.
I tell you what, man, that's pretty awesome, man. And Seth, running backs don't get 11 years.
No.
They don't get 11. You're doing something right. And then to hear a 33-year-old talk about he's bigger, stronger, faster.
Right.
Come on, man. That's scary as hell right there, man.
Yeah, no, I've since I started with the Raiders, I jumped from 205. Now I'm like 212, 215, and I'm still breaking 22 miles an hour in practice.
It just doesn't seem right.
And my health I'm on a whole nother level right now, and playing wise, I just can't wait. It's just I'm excited. I'm excited about the season. I'm excited about this journey that I'm taking right now. It has its moments, especially for me and my wife, because we're expecting our fourth baby sometime in July.
Congrats.
Early August. So, and the move is going to be tough, of course, picking up and shipping out. But at the end of the day, that's what business has. That's what business calls, and you got to do what's right for you and the family.
Juice, there was a podcast called Relentlessly Motivated by Raheem Mostert, and it all starts to make sense now.
Right.
It's a much cooler name, the fish tank. We're just guys that like to tell funny stories at the bottom of the tank. So,
right. I got to get back on the podcast. I think I'm gonna start it back up. I took a little break just because last year was.
It's a lot, dude.
It's a lot, but like last year really, put me in a bind in regards to how I was being used and the mental aspect. I was just, I feel like every week I was just going out there and just being like, I know the game plan. I don't know why I'm not being used. I don't understand it. One thing, like, I don't like to, I don't like to bring people down. I'm not a negative person. I keep it real. I keep it honest. And that's what I want back. I want transparency. Tell me that I suck. Tell me that I'm not good enough. Tell me the real. Be honest with me. Tell me, hey, look, Raheem, last week, you put the ball on the ground against the Colts. Yeah, that happens. I put the ball on the ground twice, but that shouldn't have been the reason why I wasn't being utilized. Especially the coach in San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan.
Kyle.
He after I had an incident with him, I put the ball on the ground one game, and he came up to me after we beat the Steelers. I put the ball on the ground, and he came up to me the next day. We sat in the office. He's like, Raheem, what's going on with you? And I said, man, honestly, I'm not getting enough totes in practice. I'm not. So if you expect me to go out into the game, with limited carries throughout practice, I'm a practice guy. I need reps. The more reps I get, the comfortable I become, right? Like that's how you have to operate, in the NFL. You can't just, have one rep here and then go on Sunday and expect that same rep to happen on Sunday. It's not going to happen. So I sat down with him and told him, hey, look, I'm only getting play action fakes and I'm not being utilized. Next thing you know, for a guy like Kyle, he just flipped it. He was like, you know what, you're going to get practice reps from here on out, and whatever happens, but I'm not going to leave it up to question.
You said something earlier when you were talking there. You said you're still running 22 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
Were you the fastest cat in the locker room last year?
I would tend to think I still hold the record for the fastest GPS clock since started at 23 miles an hour. So I haven't seen anybody else break that speed yet.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Well, hey, what's his name? Just canceled the race.
Yeah,
with
I saw
Tyreek.
that.
So
I saw that.
maybe
Yeah.
No, it canceled the challenge against Tyreek.
yeah, no allows. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
set it up.
We talk a little bit about relationships and how you've got Genty, who you're dealing with, but how you're going to handle, how the pro that you are. Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Who we got? Hey, what's up, big guy?
You talk about some relationships, man. Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with Alec Engel. You know what I mean? How do you describe your friendship with him, and what makes you guys click so well?
Yeah. Well, one, I think that we both have similar backgrounds. He was adopted, and he went through the whole process. Unfortunately, I don't know who my real father is, so it kind of was like one of those. We kind of gelled together, and just being who we are, we clicked so well in the locker room, and I've known him for quite some time. Just hearing about him, I dealt with Kyle Juszczyk, another great fullback over in San Fran. And so once you find out who like the fullbacks are in the league, there's very few, right? And so when we signed together at the Dolphins, we both were coming off injuries. He had a torn ACL. I had a partial cartilage tear in my knee, so we both had like an ACL. Mine was like an ACL process as well. It was the same process. So we were training together, doing everything together, working out, and then we just built a bond. And so it was pretty unique. And him being from Green Bay, him growing up as a Green Bay Packer fan, and then what I did against the Packers, so he obviously knew.
I love that.
During my time in San Fran, we just clicked so well together. And then we started helping each other out in the community aspect, right? Showing up for each other's events, which is when guys show up, like yourselves, you guys have been to my events as well. When you show up, it means something on a whole different level. You look at a man and you're like, you know what, this guy showed up for an event that I wanted to give back to the community. And it just gives you that one up, that one, not the one up, but like, you feel better about the connection that you made with that person because they took the time out of their day to come to your event to help a good cause. And so that's what happened with us.
Yeah. He agrees. Yeah. I agree too, man. You know what? As you're saying that, like, look, I don't know what it's like to be moving 22 miles an hour unless I'm stepping on the gas pedal. Yeah. But I understand that part as a guy who has to plan events, and while they're Jason's events and not mine, when guys show up, when they say they're going to be there and then they actually show up and they're there, and then especially when year over year they keep coming back, it starts to change. I won't name names, but there's guys and Juice will know, or somebody where I may not think they're great football players, and I'll get frustrated. They'll come out to a JTF event and shop with a kid at Cool Gear, and they're good with me, man. I don't care. I forgot all that other stuff, but people don't have to do that. They don't. When someone does something to support you and support those you're supporting, and they don't have to do it, it's special. I agree with you there.
Yeah, absolutely. She went to an appointment. I'll be right there. Okay, go with your brothers.
Too good. Go find Gunner. Yeah. Gunner, get him. Too good. All right. Yeah. So we're going to, I don't know if I've placed this in the right spot here, but we're trying to evolve as a podcast. And so we've added this little segment to it's almost like a palate cleanser, just to have a little fun. And we're calling it Fish Tank Numerology. And so it's basically a fancy way of saying, what's the story behind Raheem Mostert wearing number 31?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty funny. So when I first got into the league, off the rip, I had the ugliest numbers. I started out with 48.
Oh man!
Then went to Miami. I ended up being actually the first time I was 27, which got better.
Yeah.
And then went to Baltimore. I was 43.
You can't be in the 40s. You can't.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't run 22 miles an hour and wear a 40 number. It just
Yeah,
doesn't.
that's fullback central right there. That's fullback
yeah.
central in the 40s.
Yeah, it's once I got to the Niners, I had like 36 in Chicago. Jets, I was only there for a week, so I couldn't even tell you what number I was there.
Right.
And the Browns, I was like 40. I was 41 at the end of the year, my rookie year, and then the following year, I was in training camp. I switched numbers to 25. So it started getting better, and then, like I said, 36 was with Chicago, and then I ended up getting 31 at the Niners, the end of my second year, because one of the guys, you remember Kelvin Taylor?
Okay.
Yeah, wait, I think it's Fred Taylor's son, and so they actually played the Dolphins that year down in Miami, and they were staying in Orlando before they played Chicago. So it was like an East Coast trip, right? And so I ended up getting picked up by the Niners. So I met them in Chicago. As I was walking in, Kelvin was walking out. They had just released him, and he was 31. And so
He handed you his jersey on the way out.
yeah, so pretty much I got his jersey number, and then it just stuck. Yeah, the 31 stuck. You know, I use it as there's 32 teams in the NFL, right? And so all you need, and for me, I took it as this: all you need is just one team to accept you, and so the 31 goes against all the other teams.
31 on that list, Juice, is what it is.
Yeah, right.
So you know that's kind of like my whole
I like that.
My whole numbers game behind the number 31. You know, there's 32 teams, and I'm winning 31 because there's 31. I only need one team that gives me a chance, and so I've been able to rock 31 all these years. And I think now it's like, I mean, yeah, I think I've been rocking it for about 9 years.
Yeah.
So you got it again then? You got 31 again?
Yeah, I got 31. Yeah.
That's his number now. Now he's a vet, man.
Yeah, he's a vet. You got to take that off.
Gold jacket mentality. Give me my damn number. That's what it is. Too good. Well, so that's fish tank numerology. Like I said, it is a palate cleanser. So I'm going to dial things back now and touch on some very important, but also very, very serious elements of your journey through life. I'd always heard you had this tough upbringing. Growing up in New Smyrna Beach is not for the faint of heart, you know. I learned about that through elements of your story, but I don't know that I knew everything until I started doing this research. Obviously, sports and academics provided you a way to overcome your circumstances, but man, in preparing for this, I was shocked to learn how much gun violence had impacted your life.
Yeah.
You know, you hear people grew up in tough town, but like that was something that from the time you were 3 years old, you were really faced with. And I don't, to whatever extent you're comfortable discussing it, Raheem, can you talk about the impact that it made on you and maybe how you feel about firearms at this stage of your life?
Yeah, no. So when I was younger, I actually ended up shooting myself in the foot at the age of 3. My mom, she unfortunately was a victim of rape, and so that prompted the guy that was in our house, that I called my father for the longest time. He decided to pull a gun out and keep it under laundry, and that's where I ended up getting a hold of the firearm and shot my left foot. And so, you know, with that being said, and it just dealt with so many other things too, right? Growing up, I realized that guns were, especially for a guy who had a rap sheet in my house, a man that I thought was my father. You know, he had all kinds of guns in the house, and it was easy access. You know, and it was something that he kind of grew up with. You know, his mentality was, hey, look, you know, I'm not afraid of shooting my own siblings. And so that ended up happening with my younger brother. He's my half brother, but my younger brother, my junior year, ended up getting shot while I was in college, coming back from the national championship in track. And so he ended up getting shot several times over trying to protect our mom. And so, you know, with that, it just brought a whole different thing. I had a gun pulled out on me my senior year from the same guy, because I was trying to protect my little brother from getting beat. And so it was just one of those things. Yeah, it's one of those things where, it's just tough. And just witnessing all that stuff happen. But yeah, so with that being said, with gun violence, I do own firearms, but I've done it in a strategic and very powerful way. I don't mess around with that stuff. I've taken courses. I've actually got in contact with Broward Sheriff's Department, and I will be doing their whole training program and getting into that field, just having another notch under my belt of being safe and protected, because, I'm also a high risk, or not high risk, but a high, caliber individual that's, just, I don't have any other outside protection,
Right.
and so my family's the most important thing to me. My children and my wife, they mean the world to me, and I'll do anything and everything to make sure that they're protected. My wife, she has her CCW license as well, so we don't mess around with that stuff, and we are very strict when it comes to guns being in the house and knowing the laws and executing everything in that manner. Just because, like I said, I don't have any protection. Anybody can come in my house at any time and think that they can get some valuable stuff from me, or try put my family at risk, and that's just not the case. Because I'm very smart, intelligent in regards to firearms and what needs to be done, and the steps and everything like that. That's my little tidbit. I do like to tell people that, I'm a man of many traits. I like to do all kinds of things, whether it be lifeguard, getting into that field. I'm even trying to fly planes, trying to get into being a pilot. So
Juice has
just trying
someone you
to
can
do
talk to.
anything. Yeah, yeah.
My son's in flight school right now.
Oh, he is? How's he like it?
He loves it, man. He absolutely loves it, man.
Yeah, I was actually flying back with Geno Smith, because Geno's from South Florida.
Yeah,
I was
Miramar.
flying back with him, and I was chatting it up with this pilot and stuff like that, man, and just teaching me everything. It's pretty cool. You see the whole panel of everything, all the buttons and everything like that on the flight panel, right? But you're not really using half of that stuff,
Right.
majority of that. And I know, OJ, your son probably told you
Yeah.
that too. You're not even, you see all those buttons and lights and everything, you're not really even using all that. And he was explaining all that stuff to me, and I thought that was pretty unique. But you still have to put in like 60 hours to get, your flight license and everything like that too.
You do.
So,
You do.
yeah.
It's a commitment. It's
a grind.
He's on to the commercial part of trying
Oh,
to get his
yeah.
license. So he's already got
He
his
has to do like, what,
license.
90?
Yeah,
He has to
something
do
like
like
that.
90 hours and then
Yeah.
like 2,700 hours or something
It's
like that.
crazy amount.
Yeah,
But
it's
we
crazy.
appreciate that though. We
Yeah.
want our pilots to put a whole bunch of hours in, right?
Oh, yeah, you do.
I'm not trying to get in a plane with a guy who's been doing
It
it for a
started
week.
yesterday. Yeah, when'd you get
Right.
yesterday? Nah, I'm
Right.
good. I wait.
I know you're talented, Raheem, but I need you to put some time in if you're going to take me up in the air.
He asked the pilot, like, hey, man, how many hours you put in? He's like, oh, I put in about 5-6 hours. You're like, oh, no,
Yeah.
I'm off the plane. No, I got to go.
I'm not getting on this thing.
Nope.
Raheem, another part of your journey that we can't ignore was your relationship with Mike Stokes, a.k.a. Coach Chop.
Yeah.
Chop was your Pop Warner football coach, but clearly he was so much more than that for you, man. Talk about the influence Coach Chop had on you, and then how much of his influence, and I guess the negative influence you had in your own home, we talked a little bit about. How much have these things shaped your approach to parenting your own kids that we got a great opportunity to meet your youngest?
Yeah. With Coach Chop, Mike Stokes, for everybody that, if they want to give the full government, Coach Chop, it came from Coach Pork Chop. We called him Coach Pork Chop. So, Chop for short. And he was my first ever football coach that I ever had, when I first started at the age of 6. And he was also the regional commissioner for Pop Warner. And so he had, countless of kids that he would mentor and coach up. And, he was always one of those loving and caring guys. And you see that from afar, right? When I was playing football and knowing that my household wasn't, glitz and glamour. It was rough at times. And football was my outlet, right? Football is many guys' outlets, going through the things they go through. It's one way to show your aggression and go out there and compete. And so, he instilled those values of strength and honesty and to never quit, and to hold yourself to a high standard, and being a man. At the end of the day, that's what it boiled down to. Just going out there and being a man and doing everything that you have to do to succeed, but also others to succeed around you. And it's funny because he came from, we call it the countryside of New Smyrna Beach, and each side, and then west of 95 is the country. And so
you were on the beach side.
Yeah, I was on the beach side most of the time. And so you get your properties, the acres and all that stuff. And he had a whole bunch of acres, and he owned like a landscape, excavation company. And so while he was doing the commissioner stuff, he was also working hard in that regard, right? And being able to provide. He built his house out of the logs, it's a log cabin house. He built his house by hand, him and his family, with the property that they bought, the trees around the property. And so it was just like one of those things where he would host like events at his house, have all the Pop Warner kids come stay, have a sleepover and fires and ride dirt bikes and four-wheelers and all that stuff, and make you feel, you feel like you were at a good home. There's a lot of kids in my area that didn't have that. They didn't have good homes, including myself. So him doing those things and showing us what it means to love and to care for his family and his kids and, his brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and grandparents, it was a lineage of caring for one another and his family. So, witnessing that, it just made me all the more reason to just get away and go to Purdue and find my own footing as a man and to do everything that I want to do and to have a beautiful family, to live in a beautiful home, to, do everything, have a beautiful wife, just doing all those things because that's what he did. That's what he epitomized. And so that's the reason why he's such a huge impact in my life, and he will forever be a huge impact in my life. I still talk with Mama Chop. Actually, I'm a surpriser because I'm driving up to New Smyrna today. And
nice.
Yeah, we actually drove down yesterday morning to go to the game last night, and now we're about to go back to the beach house because I have a beach house. Y'all more than welcome to come too. If y'all want to come up to the beach house, you're more than welcome to come.
Be careful what you wish for,
right? Don't get the McDuffie. The James gang will be coming up there, right? We'll be on our way.
My treat, honestly. Whenever y'all want to come up, y'all let me know. I got like a little small house. It's about like 2 bedrooms, a Florida room, and it's walking distance to the beach, and it's 1 block off of Flagler Avenue, which is like a popular street that has all the bars and restaurants and good coffee and pizza and everything like that, Italian food, whatever you. So if y'all want to come on out, man, be my guest, please. You're welcome to stay.
Thank you for that. Road trip.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll wait for when he's in Vegas. We're going to New Smyrna. We're going to take over his place when he's
We'll make sure everything's in good shape.
Let me know. I'll give y'all the code to the lockbox, so that way y'all have the key.
I bet.
Don't have to tell me twice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm definitely he definitely made an impact in my life, and I wouldn't be here without him. Honestly, I wouldn't be here without that male figure. I missed it all those years when growing up, but finally seeing what he did for not only for me but for my family, my brother, the impact that he made in the community, and even I'm trying to spread awareness for what he has gone through and why he passed away. And he passed away from melanoma and also had tumors in his brain and stuff like that too, that it was just too late. And so, I try to honor him as much as I possibly can because, he's always going to be looking down at me and going to be like one of his favorite quotes that he always told me when I messed up. Boy, what the hell you doing? Like, in his little country accent, boy, you stupid. Like, so it's one of those things, man. I'm always going to have those memories of him and just trying to live the life that, he wanted me to live.
That's awesome.
Good.
Yeah. Love it.
Coach Chop.
Coach Chop,
man. Well, it was crazy too. I brought them. Sorry, but
no.
when I was in San Francisco, we played at Hard Rock for the Super Bowl
Right.
against the Chiefs the first time. Yeah, I'll make some popcorn for you, okay? I got you, buddy. And so I brought. Okay, thank you. You gonna leave it right there? All right. And so I brought his wife. He had passed away that year in 2019. So I brought his wife and his son, who I'm real close with. That's like a brother to me. We're the same age. We grew up together. And I invited him to the Super Bowl, and I scored. I scored a touchdown in the stadium, and it was just like a surreal moment. You know,
That's so cool.
I was like, man, you got the best seat in the house, man. You watched me score a Super Bowl
Yeah.
touchdown. You know, right there on the home soil.
That's
So
so good.
I'm always gonna cherish that moment, and you know, it's definitely one of those ones that you look back and you're like, yeah, I'm happy I did that for him.
Very special.
Yeah.
Very special. And, you know, as we're talking about coaches and influence, and as this interview has kind of gone on, this question might be a little awkward, but there's really been two men that have had this overarching presence in your NFL experience. And one is Chip Kelly, who you're now reunited with, and Mike McDaniel is indeed the other. So just to connect the dots for listeners, Chip Kelly was the head coach in Philly when you signed as a UDFA in 2015. And then a year later, he's the head coach in San Francisco when you finally get, you know, get your feet rooted a little bit after that crazy journey. And now he's your offensive coordinator with the Raiders. So you guys are reunited. And then in between all of that, Mike McDaniel was not only your head coach the last few years here with Miami, but he was the run game coordinator in San Francisco. You, of course, you know, are a guy who was a part of that run game. So really almost your entire professional journey, those two men have been involved in some way, shape, or form. Sounds like things last year didn't go the way that anybody would have hoped. But what kind of an impact have the two of them made on your career? And then I wonder if there's something that each of them has imprinted. Look, football's a funny business, and guys who you could have great relationships with, things can also go sideways and all that stuff. But even with all of that, there's people that I know OJ cannot stand, but every now and then he'll tell me, hey, the one damn thing that I agreed with Jimmy Johnson on, you know, like there's always something. So I guess my question is there one thing that each of them has imprinted on you to help this journey that is just kind of an anomaly, a guy who, you know, like, you were not supposed to do the thing. You're not supposed to be running 22 miles an hour 11 years into an NFL career for a guy who didn't even get drafted. Like, none of that's supposed to happen, and yet here you are still going. I'm just curious if you know, the impact that those two guys have had is a long question.
You know, I would say the biggest obvious indicator would be that they saw something in me. You know, that's first and foremost. You know, with Chip, the reason why I kind of wasn't with the Eagles that first year was because we had so many different monsters in the running back room, and I was kind of like the last pick of the litter, right? I was, you know, almost like the runt in that litter, coming in undrafted. At the time, it was DeMarco Murray was a starter coming from Dallas, and then you had Ryan Matthews, who was, you know, a Pro Bowler that came from the Chargers. And then you had Sproles, right? Darren Sproles, and then me and Kenyon Barner. You know, we were the two ones that were fighting for that fourth spot because they were taking 4 running backs in that offense. Right. So, you know, we both
and they handed you ugly ass 40 numbers.
Right, exactly. And he had 34, so it was already a given that.
The writing is on the wall.
He was going to get the job, and I was just going to be a practice squad guy. But, you know, I would say the biggest indicator for Chip, you know, in regards to what happened over in Philly and then what's going on right now is that he knows what he's going to get out of me. I spent time with him in San Fran. I think it was like the last month. I ended up practicing. I was on practice squad for a little bit, and then I got the last game to be able to run, you know, my first carries for 6 yards. And so, you know, it was just a building point from that point on. And so now we're reunited in Vegas. And, you know, once he found out that I was a free agent, once I got released from the Dolphins, started hitting me up like, you know, hey, look, I told Pete that we need to go and grab you. And I would say this, you know, another guy that I feel like made a huge impact and not knowing is Pete Carroll, just because I played against him for so many years in you know, battle with from San Francisco and Seattle, right? All those years I was in San Fran, he noticed me right off the rip. And so he called me up this offseason and was like, hey, I know you done ran the ball against me for all these years. When is it about time for you to run the ball for me?
I know that's right.
I said,
I
Pete,
love those stories.
yeah, so that's it. That's one of those guys that he's definitely making an impact right now, knowing that he has leverage to utilize me in a way that I would love to. And then same thing with Mike. Yeah, we have our differences right now, and I don't. It is what it is. No disrespect. It's just a business, right? I gotta move on, and I gotta protect my family. I gotta do what's right for me and bring my value up. But he stood on the table for me when he first got hired, and I wish he would have stood on the table, for me to finish my career as a Dolphin. But like I said, it's a business, so no ill will. I hope the best for him, and I don't hold grudges, and it's not on my terms. It's not on my terms. So, but yeah, I would say that the biggest thing is also recognizing talent, for what it was worth at the time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, something to be said for that, right?
Yep, absolutely, man.
Ooh-wee. Man, Raheem said he was going to make time for us.
Yeah, we've been taking all this time, Sevach. We got to get him up out of here.
Well, I freaking took 10 minutes just to get through that last question, for crying out loud.
That was you, really. You did. I mean, damn.
That was like forever. Just get it out, Seth. Golly. But here you guys are, two back-to-back champions now, Florida Panthers fans, Rockstar fans, and you're spending this time with me. I appreciate it. So I'm not going to take up much more of your time, but we do end every episode, Raheem, the same way. It is our fish tank 2-minute drill.
Yep.
So we're putting 2 minutes on the clock, and it's a loose 2 minutes. We say 2 minutes, but it's not as intense as it might be on the game field. But we've got 2 minutes on the clock. If you need timeouts, let us know. We got a few questions to throw at you that hopefully will be fun, and then we're going to let you get to making some popcorn. Sound good?
All right. Seth, clock started, Seth?
Clock is starting as soon as Raheem answers his first question.
All right. Raheem, what in the hell is a Boilermaker?
Boilermaker is a guy that's in a train room feeding out coal to the boiler.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Big Ten thing, you know that Big Ten thing.
So, I did a little research on this. I wanted to see what he had to say, and here we are, 2 minutes. But I did a little research on it, Juice. I guess back in the day, Purdue had decided we're going all in football. We're tired of it just being – this is like 1800s, the Ivy League school thing. And so they just got a bunch of dudes, just some meat-eating, mouth-breathing dudes. And they played one of these, academic schools and just pummeled them. And they were like, they're a bunch of Boilermakers, kind of basically called them a bunch of thugs, but, Boilermakers, I guess it's stuff. Fun stuff. All right. You're an avid surfer growing up. You were actually offered a professional surfing contract by Billabong at the age of 14, which is crazy. Where would you be right now if you had taken that contract and hung up your cleats?
I'll be in Australia, Hawaii, Maui. I'll be on all these different beaches in Japan. I'll be out there, so
that's not terrible.
No, it's not terrible. But I wouldn't have a degree, and I wouldn't have played football. I would have never met you guys.
Hey, Rod, real quick, can I call a timeout?
You've done it now 2 shows in a row, Julie.
I always call my own timeouts. we don't get in the ocean like that, Raheem. We don't mess with what's in that ocean, man. What's wrong with you, bro?
Hey, that's it. But you could say that about being in the woods.
Yeah, I don't go in the woods either, though.
But or the desert or anywhere, right? Like you never know until you actually go in there. You never know.
I got
you.
Well, Juice, I think that's what so he clearly was a stud surfer, but I think that Billabong was like, wait a minute, we got this young man of color that's surfing like that at 14. Like this dude is right. It's got to be so interesting stuff. Looks like you have a couple pretty good choices. Okay.
Time back in, Big Seth. All right. So we're talking about your surfing, and we love your surfing touchdown celebration. It's one of the best that we've seen in the game. But what are your top 3 favorite end zone celebrations of all time?
Top 3 favorite end zone celebrations. I would say a current dance. So like whoever comes up with like a current dance that's like for that year, a theme. Like the Gritty was good at the time. but now it's played out.
Right.
So I would say a current dance. I
Your
would
boy
say,
Gesicki ruined the gritty. I think.
yeah.
So you better leave Penn State alone, man.
Yeah. Let's see, another two more. I mean, I think that's answers all three, right?
Right.
That's
Like,
it. Yeah, you can take that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well, I
take
love
that.
man, the roller coaster, man. Is probably one of my.
The roller coaster was clutch. That was like a once in
that
a
was
lifetime.
money right there.
Yeah, that was a good one. The wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
The wheelbarrow
race. Yes, the wheelbarrow race.
Yeah, and the Shaka line. That was a good one.
Oh man, there's so many good ones. So
Hell
many good
yeah.
ones. Good stuff. All right, last question. Last holiday season, your wife Devin posted a video of her singing a Christmas song. Bro, so it's kind of two questions. I guess, A, was that really her singing? Because that was like some Mariah Carey juice. I don't know if you saw it, but it was crazy. And so if that was really her singing, my question is, when you guys are together at a karaoke night, what is your couple's go-to song?
Okay, so first question. Yes, that was actually her singing. She actually is an amazing singer, and I've been trying to tell her that she needs to go and actually produce music in a studio. She really has a voice like no other. Like honest to God, she could really sing.
No, it was legit.
She created that. So it was one of her favorite Christmas songs. She created that song in the studio in a time during the holidays when I was at the facility. She just went on her own and decided to go up to a studio and record that song of her singing and surprise me for Christmas. And yeah, at first I didn't even recognize it because I was like, oh my God, who is this? Like,
It was so good, Juice.
but we were like, so do you know they do like the Christmas like drive-through shows, right? Like there's one down here, like right down the road
With the lights and stuff. And
the lights,
yep.
yeah.
Right.
And you drive and you turn on the radio and you listen to music or whatever.
Yep.
And so I'm driving. I got the kids. My mother-in-law's in the back seat. My wife's sitting next to me.
Trade Winds is up by you. That's probably
Yeah,
the one you went
yeah,
to.
yep. And so she just hits play, and I'm thinking like, man, whoever's singing this, I didn't know it was her at the time.
He thought it was part of the show.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this is like whoever's singing this. And my mother-in-law's like, you need to like really listen, like take a listen. And I'm like, I don't like, who is this? Like, it's amazing. I'm like, man, this sounds like Beyonce almost. Like, she sounds good. And then she was like, it's me. I'm like, what? That's you? Like, I haven't heard your voice in years. Like,
Wow.
so she really knows how to sing. And then our go-to song, I mean, honestly, we play all kinds of karaoke songs. We actually like karaoke. Like, we do a good job complimenting one another. She has this song that she likes with Kid Rock. And
So
it's
you're
like,
Kid Rock in this?
it's like a duet thing. It's like
Okay.
a Kid Rock and some other woman. I don't know.
Oh.
But
I was Sheryl Crow, I think.
yeah.
Yes.
I think it's Sheryl Crow. Yeah.
I think so.
And so
I think so.
I try to do the Kid Rock, but she kills Sheryl Crow. But yeah, no, we get some drinks and we do some
Picture.
karaoke. Man, it's a good show.
Yeah.
Picture is the name of that song.
Yeah,
That's the one.
yeah.
That's good stuff.
Well, that is the 2-minute drill. Juice, if you haven't heard it, I'm telling you, I'm not just saying it to butter up or whatever. Devin Mostert
Check her out.
killed it.
Yeah.
Absolutely killed it. That is cool to know that was her voice.
Yeah.
Thank you for this time. Congrats again on your Panthers. Congrats on clocking 22 miles an hour as you're heading in. Very difficult for me to root for the Raiders, but I'm going to always root for you.
31.
Yeah.
Sure.
And while you are a former Miami Dolphin now, like Juice is going to make sure that there is one of those aqua jackets waiting for you when you're ready to be just retired.
That's right.
And going back and forth to the beach house. We're going to keep that on lock for you. We got it straightened out. Yeah, man, it was just so great having you down here the last few years. And I love that you're going to be a South Florida guy.
Yeah. No, and I just want to say, man, I haven't done too many podcasts or talk about the fans for South Florida, but I just want to say, man, I really appreciate the fans, and they made the whole process that much sweeter, just because this football game is tough as it is, but when you have those connections like yourselves, Seth, you and Jason do an unbelievable job with events, and then OJ, I mean, come on, this is like one of the legends right there in itself, right? and enough needs to be said about him, you know, and all the things that he's done and been able to do, to even Nat, to so many different guys. You guys make the whole process and journey of being a true Dolphin and South Floridian, you know, all the worthwhile. So I just want to say thank you guys, and also thank the fans as well for the memories and the journeys as well, because without them, you know, they won't be able to know who I am, you know, just because you need eyes to watch you every time. And so, you know, the fans do an unbelievable job. They're gonna hate you or love you, but at the end of the day, it's all love too, though. So, and it sucks. I mean, I'm still getting messages to this day. Why'd you leave the Dolphins? I'm like, it wasn't my choice. Like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you, but you know, I'm always cherished the organization for what it is, and you know, the history behind it. So I'm glad I'm in the history books with it too.
That's
so.
right.
You are indeed.
Yeah, man. Some
Good luck breaking that one.
Tough records to break, man. That's what I'm talking about. Leave your mark, big dog. Leave your mark, man.
Absolutely.
Raheem, thanks for diving in.
Appreciate you guys.